back. And for this one, I want to continue the trend I'm on so far, kind of continuing off of the last video with the first overall pick, discussing like quarterbacks that the Panthers could go. I want to do my first official video of doing just a first round mock draft for all the teams, kind of breaking down my thoughts for all of them and seeing which team players could potentially go. So of course this is updated with Carolina being the first overall pick and Chicago with the 9th. So we're going to start. I don't see any for trades. I'm not going to do any mock trades or anything like that. I'm not going to try and guess, even though my Carolina Panther, the last video for Carolina, I did say there was a chance that they announced they could trade down again, but I'm not going to do a simulation for that. So we're just going to stick with what the order is for right now. If major things change, I'll put out another video and kind of redoing the order for that. But let's start right away. If this one I'm sticking to my last video, if you have not seen that, go please check that out. But I guess to give you a small glimpse into that, I did say that the Panthers will draft C.J. Stroud. I think that people consider him the safest quarterback of all the four. Even though I didn't have Will Levis in the video, he has a small chance he can go first overall, but I focused on Young, Stroud, and Richardson. But I'm going to stick to what I said, drafting C.J. Stroud first overall. And for Houston, I think they get very lucky. I know a lot of Houston fans were concerned that they took a big mistake winning the last game of the year and losing out in the first overall pick, but I do not think that's going to harm them. They are going to get their franchise guy, Bryce Young, either way. They don't have to trade up to get him. So you have quarterbacks going 1 and 2. For Arizona, this is tough again. I could see them definitely trading down, but I'm not sure exactly. They can go in a lot of different ways. I'm going to go with a little bit controversial one, especially in the news, but I think over time it might go away. I'm going to say they are going to get Jalen Carter with the 3rd overall pick. Even though he did have, like I said, the big off-the-field problem not too long ago, I do think that people are going to not pass on his talent, whether it makes it right or wrong. They won't. So for the Colts, they are in a good position. They don't have to trade up, at least for this mock draft. And they get the pick for one of these two. And I go back and forth for this one. But I do believe overall, I think Will Levis is slightly better, more polished quarterback than Anthony Richardson. I get Richardson really shines with his elite talent, his size, his speed. But how he played on tape is very concerning overall. Again, had just barely under 54% completion percentage in his only year starting. So I'm going to say they will take Will Levis with the 4th overall pick. And this is a unique situation because they said that Pete Carroll said that they might look at potentially drafting a quarterback. They also signed Geno Smith to a 3-year deal. And you kind of wonder if they're going to be in this position ever again of being a playoff team and having such a high pick, thankfully from the Denver Broncos. Would Anthony Richardson go there? Would he want that? And it's very tough also to see Will Anderson on the board too. And of course with other ones as well, Quentin Johnson, though I think they'd be a little bit too high. You have Devon Witherspoon, Tyree Wilson. But I think for this one, I think they will. I think if they had to choose, I believe they'll go with Will Anderson to help really, bulk up that defensive side, get back to try and get back to the Legion of Boom. Not saying they will, but try and kind of slowly build back into that. But I do think it's hard to pass on a prospect like Will Anderson, especially with the concerns with Anthony Richardson. For Lions, same way too. They do need cornerback, and I think that's where they're probably going to go. I don't think, with Jared Goff playing well, it doesn't seem smart, or it doesn't seem like a good idea to you kind of put your faith in Goff and then take Anthony Richardson. Again, I think way too high. So I believe Devon Witherspoon, especially trying to help that secondary with players going for free agency or haven't panned out. I do think Devon Witherspoon would be a perfect spot for them to help that defense. Really picked it up towards the end of the season, but overall really struggled. If they played as good as they did towards the end of the season, they probably would have made the playoffs. The Raiders, again, same situation. Very, very tough. I mean, I could definitely see Christian Gonzalez going here. For quarterbacks, again, you're not in a you're in a tough situation with this. I saw reports today saying that Jimmy Garoppolo, they're going to try and pursue him. He's asking for $25 million a year. If they get Jimmy G, is that them saying he's the franchise guy, or is that just a bridge quarterback? And that's my concern with Anthony Richardson is if you are getting Jimmy Garoppolo, is there thought in mind their franchise guy with Josh McDaniels saying that he's more comfortable with them? He's been with, and of course he coached with them in New England, or is he a bridge quarterback for potential Anthony Richardson? And for this one, again, I think there's better prospects overall on the board, especially with Tyree Wilson, Christian Gonzalez, so forth. But I think for this one, I think we're going to see back-to-back corners go off the board. I do see potentially Christian Gonzalez, and it's also Tyree Wilson's very. This is tough because the next one too. I'm trying to think like will the Falcons go, so forth. I'm gonna say Christian Gonzalez goes 7th. So we go to 8th. Now, I did put their faith in Desmond Ridder. It seems like that he will be the starter. So, again, it doesn't seem right. But who knows? If Anthony Richardson does fall to them in the draft, they might change their mind. But for this one, I do have Tyree Wilson going to them. Chicago, with them trading down from the 9th overall spot, or from the 1st overall spot to 9. A lot of stuff on the board. Definitely, you can go tons, obviously on here, tons of direction for what they can do. You still have Peter Schwanski, if I did say that right. You do have Jackson Smith, Quinn Johnson, Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is off the board. I do believe that they are going to get Orlando Pace in free agency. So I think the best option is, in my video, kind of talked about like in the beginning part of my last video, is get more receivers around them. And I do think Quinn Johnson would be a great spot to kind of help build that offense around him, along with Darnell Mooney, giving him a big body receiver to help Justin Fields and kind of take some of the slack off of Justin Fields and give you more of a idea of if he's the franchise quarterback or not. So I think it's a great spot right here. You trade down, you get a Pro Bowl receiver from the trade, and you get one in the 9th overall pick spot. So I think it's a good spot for them. So this one, I don't understand for wide receiver, because they already have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I guess you can look at as the slot position, and no doubt, almost drafted them at first, and no doubt Jackson Smith would be a very, no doubt a great spot for the slot position, because that's where he solely has played. But you also have an aging position right here. And if we take a look, I don't see too much. Joey Porter could be a spot too, because they're secondary with a lot of free agents this year for their team. I can understand if Joey Porter went this high, because he really excelled in the combine, and they do need a corner. I think they do need a corner in this position, especially with Darius Slay getting older, and they have given him permission to seek a trade, even though he's said he isn't. I think it's probably best to hold off on the offense necessarily, because I don't think you need it as much, even though you need it soon for the offensive line. I do think corner is a big need for them, no doubt. This might be too high for Joey Porter, but again, I think that's a big need. They need somebody in the secondary, especially with Bradbury and Slay potentially leaving, and also with a few others. I think Joey Porter is a good spot for them. Again, could be probably way, you could probably tell me in the comments, it's probably way too high for Joey Porter, and probably for some of these cornerbacks, 3 going in the top 10, but that's how I just look at it. Number 11, I do think you need to really bolster that offense, especially losing Robert Woods. There's talks about Derrick Henry potentially going, and also by tackle. I do think they need to. I think more importantly, I think you can probably get receivers in free agency, and also later in the draft. But I do think tackle to really replace Taylor Lewan is the most important option to help Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill, whoever's starting for this upcoming season. So I'm going to go tackle with replace their long-term tackle that was there previously, Taylor Lewan, with with a new one. So on the clock, they already got quarterback. That's already out of the way. If I'm Houston, I'm not opposed to taking Jackson Smith if he's available right here. I'm not. And of course, you have other ones, D-line. You do obviously Kensey. You have Lucas Van Ness, Brian Branch. But I do think, again, if you really want to help Bryce Young in this position, you need to go out there and get talent around him, just like for any young quarterback. And also with the concern with Brandon Cooks, if he's going to be potentially leaving via, if they release him or trade, I think Jackson Smith is a great spot for that to really give him a nice weapon. So I think for Houston, if this would be an amazing first round, getting your franchise guy in Bryce Young that you always wanted, and also pairing him up with a great slot receiver. Again, I know he's solely stuck in that wide receiver, or the slot position, but there's no denying his talent. I know the other knock on him too is his injury, but again, I think it's worth the chance to really help Bryce Young and give him pieces around him. So for the Jets, do I see quarterback? No, because they're most likely going to get Aaron Rodgers, and I have on my TV right now, they're talking about Aaron Rodgers with that. So quarterback's out of the way with that. So they have tackle, linebacker, which is, most probably their only needs. I mean, running back, they did have Breece Hall. He did tear his ACL this past season, but you should be expected to, I don't know if I say start for the start week 1, but he'll be back, I think, early on into the season. Also, tight end. You don't really have a great tight end, so Dalton Kincaid maybe a spot here. Again, that might be a little too high for him, but no doubt for the offensive side, it's could be a very nice piece to go along with. But I think more importantly, I think trying to solidify that offensive line really help with that. I think Paris Johnson Jr. would be a great spot. Once again, I kind of understand Kincaid, but I do think it's a tad high for a tight end, but we'll see. Or for any for the tight ends, if you look at, they're all still on the board for the top 3, top 4. You also have Darnell Washington, which is way too high for him. No doubt the biggest one would be Kincaid. But I do think trying to help the offensive line, especially for Aaron Rodgers, is most important. So Paris Johnson Jr., getting your future franchise tackle, is the best spot. New England, I don't know what's going to happen with Mac Jones. There's so much stories out there of the coaching staff having problems and his personality and so forth. But I think he's going to stay. I don't think there's any problem with that. You have tackle edge. So for this one, obviously you have Kensey. Don't know if he's safety. Well, they did just lose Devin McCourty. You have Lucas Van Ness. You do have Hunter Henry, though he can be viewed as a cap casualty, but more so probably staying as opposed to Juno Smith, where he's going to probably get cut. I'm pretty sure Juno Smith's supposed to be like the 3rd highest paid tight end entering this season, which is insane as a backup. But this is tough. I'm just kind of seeing just trying to see what they could go. They can go in different directions, especially with players on the board. I'm going to go with defense. I think it's definitely going to be defense, no doubt, for this position. And I'm going to say they're going to bolster that defensive line interior and take it from Kensey from Pittsburgh. If I'm saying that right, I apologize. I don't want to try and pronounce the first name. I don't want to butcher it. So for the Packers, this is post, of course, Aaron Rodgers, if we're assuming he is going to go there, and the start of Jordan Love. So quarterbacks out of the way. Wide receiver, tight end, edge rusher, and linebacker. I do think this is a spot where they can most likely go offense right here, especially they're not having a great tight end in a long time. So I'm going to go with, and also trying to help, again, surround talent with Jordan Love, seeing that you might potentially lose more receivers with Lazard potentially leaving too. I know you have Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, but I think adding more pieces around Jordan Love is probably the best option to see if he is the franchise guy, give you a quicker answer, as opposed to, kind of not shying away from that. But I am going to say the Packers are going to take a tight end and take in Dalton Kincaid. Washington, again, same way. There's a quarterback questions with that. Not entirely sure who's going to be at the position. Do I see Washington taking Anthony Richardson. Potentially. I'm not gonna throw that out of the way. It is certainly a possibility with with their unsure with, of course, Carson Wentz is gone. You do have Sam Howell that they did say that they were going to have him as a 2023 starter. Would things change if they were given the chance for Anthony Richardson? I don't know, but I do think I'll lean towards that they're going to, even though I'll agree with them and say that they will let Sam Howell play. For this one, this is tough. I'm just trying to see what's available because they don't need receiver. They don't need running back. Maybe tight end, but I think they have more dire needs than that. Let's check out the tackle spot. Interior. Osiris Torrance, maybe a tad high for this one, but trying to bolster that offensive line. It wouldn't be horrible. Just trying to think, because like for weapons wise for quarterback, they don't need too much. Defense struggled a little bit this year, but again, it might be a little too high. But I'm going to say Osiris Torrance to really kind of help out with that offensive line. I'm going to say he's going to go to Washington. Pittsburgh offensive line, no doubt. We're going to take a tackle, Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, going to the Steelers. We have the Lions once again picking. Of course, previously we just had a corner going to them. So for this one, go D-line. Cornerback's got another question. So I'm going to say Brian Brees, I think, goes there. Brian Brees to help the interior line, help that defense, especially along with Aiden Hutchinson to really get pressure. One of the better, if not the best, interior linemen. I know we had the guy from Pittsburgh go higher, but I think Brian Brees would be a great spot to help with that. The defense, again, alongside with Aiden Hutchinson. Buccaneers, this could be an interesting spot for quarterback because they don't know. I know they said Baker Mayfield could be they did say they might go after Baker Mayfield. Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't know if they did say they would go after him. It's kind of, you're kind of in a tough spot with not having your franchise guy. I know they said they would go with Kyle Trask as that. But again, you never know until these guys fall to them. They do have a lot of needs. Just trying to see where they could potentially go. Let's see who's available at tight end. Michael Mayer, potentially. They still have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So, I mean, offensively, they're aging, but they have maybe a few years left. If you do not think they'll be Super Bowl contenders, but definitely probably a playoff contender, depending on what quarterback you get on the board. I know they are. Yeah, they have a ton of problems on the defense, letting players go. I'm not opposed to Nolan Smith going to this team. Again, I think they definitely need help. I know linebacker is probably the more glaring need. I don't know if there's necessarily a linebacker that can go this high. Let's see who's available. Yeah, I don't know if any linebackers really first round pick material. This is tricky. I'm not sure where they can go for this. I'm gonna lean towards. They don't need safety. I'm gonna say they're gonna help on the defensive line. Say Lucas Van Ness. I'm gonna go with that. It's probably a horrible pick. I mean, you can let me know. Yeah, I'm just kind of my first few times doing mock drafts for everybody. Usually, I kind of do it for like one, for one specific team. So Seattle at 20. Again, I know, I think Anthony Richardson was probably way too high for the 5th spot, but 20. I mean, if you can get potentially your franchise guy, have him be set behind Geno Smith. I mean, Geno Smith signed a 3-year deal, but they can get out of it after 2. Okay, you have your receivers. I think this is where the Anthony Richardson fall is going to stop. I think if they're in a position they can get a franchise guy with his size, I agree with all the concerns with him. I completely understand. In my last video, I compared him to, for their draft comps, I did throw Cardell Jones in that spot because he reminded me so much about that team's getting in love with his size, his arm strength, but playing the position was a big question mark. But I do think at 20. I can see Seattle taking their franchise guy, have him sit behind Geno Smith for a couple years, and this is where I do think that Anthony Richardson is gonna the slide's gonna stop at 20. I think this is a more reasonable spot as opposed to a top 5-10 pick. Even though I did put it projected because you never know, teams could get desperate and just take one if they needed to. So for the Chargers. I'm not opposed to the edge rusher because of the concerns with Khalil Mack being a linebacker, but also they have some problems with their cap, especially they had to restructure Khalil Mack and a few others. So I wouldn't be opposed to maybe Nolan Smith or someone going there. Receiver, I think ultimately they have to move on from Keenan Allen with his age and his cap. And I think Jordan Addison would be a great spot for the Chargers, pair alongside Mike Williams. Again, for Baltimore, they definitely need wide receiver, edge, corner. And I do see them taking Zay Flowers. Actually put some effort into drafting a wide receiver 1. So, I do believe wide receiver is the best spot here, depending on what quarterback, or if Lamar Jackson still stays there, you actually get him help. This would be the first time since 2019 that they would draft a wide receiver in the first round. Again, smaller receiver, but definitely for a skill set, I think no doubt warrants a first-round pick. Vikings, again, a lot of as you can see on the news, cutting a lot of big-time players on their team. Definitely linebacker, defensive line, corner. If this one, especially with Patrick Peterson and a few other, and others getting up there, specifically Patrick Peterson getting up there in age and trying to really help that defense that was worse in the NFL, I think Deontay Banks would be a good spot there, trying to bolster that secondary and help rebuild it. Let's see, Jaguars. So you have guard, center, defensive back. Wide receiver, I think they spent too much money on the position. I do think they're good for right now, especially with now Kevin Ridley coming back. Actually, I think Brian Branch could be a definitely an interesting spot here. If he falls, really help that secondary that really, towards the end, really picked it up. And I think I'm going to go with that DM Branch for Jacksonville. Giants. Again, almost all the receivers are gone. I think Josh Downs. If teams get desperate, I could see some of these people kind of rise, especially Josh Downs potentially slipping into like the late first. With my draft how it went, but wide receiver, tight end, center, linebacker. This is tough. I think for another reason, I'm gonna go with tight end in this position because you need to, especially with signing Daniel Jones to that big contract. I think you need to put more pieces around them. He had average, below average talent around him aside from Saquon Barkley. And I think Michael Mayer is a nice spot at the tight end. Give him more weapons. See if he can prove himself. If Dan Jones can prove himself to being the guy that they gave the money to. Dallas. This is an interesting spot here. Wide receiver, defensive line. Wide receiver. All the top guys are off the board. I won't be surprised if Jerry Jones tried to really bolster that defense and, try and get another Micah Parsons on him, especially with some people, going to be having cap problems soon with some of their players. I'm going to say they're going to take a chance on Nolan Smith. I think if he falls to him, undersized for an edge rusher, but extremely athletic. I know he had injury problems this year, but I think that I won't be surprised if Jerry Jones took that shot and try to take a chance on him to pair him up with Micah Parsons and really help that defense with Quinn as a coordinator. I think it's a really trying up their Super Bowl chances. They always say that every year, but no doubt I think Nolan Smith, if he can be used right, especially in that Quinn defense, would I think thrive. For the Bills, we do have guard, safety, defensive back. You can definitely go tackle here. Miles Murphy could be a spot. But again, with the way the league's going, offensive minded, I think you might know where we're going to be going with this. As a Bills fan, I've seen this every single day of people go back and forth of what the Bills should get. But I think ultimately, if he does fall to him, especially being in need at running back this late in the draft, I think Bijan Robinson will be a good spot. I know you have questions about offensive line. If you're going to answer that in free agency or later in the draft, I think it's tough to pass on Bijan Robinson with his skill set, his talent. Definitely need a franchise running back, or at the very least go back to having once a top running back in the draft. Probably the last time we had a great one was LaShawn McCoy via trade, but before that, in terms of drafting one, Marshawn Lynch. But then it's been a while since we had a top running back with LaShawn McCoy. Ever since then, Singletary has done a good job. Cook did a nice job this year when he actually played late in the season. But I think it's tough to pass on a great running back like this prospect in the draft. Cincinnati, again, I think they do. I think they really need to fix the offensive line to help Joe Burrow. So I do see Broderick Jones going there, trying to give Joe Burrow more protection and not taking all those hits, especially looking back at the AFC Championship game from Kansas City. I know that's not tackle spot, but Chris Jones really, disrupted that offensive line. And I think just trying to get any help on there is a big need. Again, I know that was more the guards and centers' fault, but I mean, just getting any help from that spot definitely is a big need for Burrow. San Francisco, they made this trade with to get Sean Payton. So they do have a late first round pick, and I think this is where I could definitely see Miles Murphy going here. Philadelphia Eagles. I know I did see many times of Jamari Gibbs going here. I think first round pick is a tad high, even though it's late first. You can kind of consider this like basically a second round pick. Trying to see where they can go. Definitely got a big need, what I had earlier with the 10th spot, getting Joey Porter Jr. and the cornerback position. I won't be opposed to Josh Downs. I think this might be too high, but trying to think where they can go with this. I think guard may be a tad high for this. Let's see what we have for guard. I guess we can go with Steve Alvia, if I said that right. Steve Alvia at guard, and wrap it off. I think to get DeJuan Jones replacing Orlando Brown at that spot. Of course, they don't have the money to pay him. I already I think it's for sure that Chicago will go after him and sign him. So I think replacing that, getting Patrick Mahomes protection to help, to get your franchise guy moving away from Orlando Brown and saving that money and getting a cheaper option at the position, I think that is a good spot right there. So that wraps up my first round pick, or my first round for the 2023 draft. Again, a quick recap: C.J. Stroud, Panthers; Bryce Young, Jalen Carter, Will Levis, Will Anderson Jr., Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, Tyree Wilson, Quentin Johnson, Joey Porter Jr., Peter Shawansky. Apologize if I got that wrong. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Paris Johnson Jr., Kalija Cansey. I probably did a horrible job with that. Dalton Kincaid, Osiris Torrance, Alton Harris, Brian Brees, Lucas Van Ness, Anthony Richardson, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Deontay Banks, Brian Branch, Michael Mayer, Nolan Smith, B.J. Robinson, Broderick Jones, Miles Murphy, Steve Avila, and then DeJuan Jones, wrapping up with Kansas City. So, guys, this is my first round mock draft. This is my first round or first mock draft on the channel. Again, trying to continue off of the Carolina Panthers video I made last time. Let me know your thoughts below. If you agree with the list, if you think I took some players a little too high, or if I let players slide too low in what you believe they're going to go. Let me know if for your favorite team, if I did pick the right player for you. With all that being said, thank you for watching. I know this was a long video, but again, I want to take my time with going with the first round, taking my time trying to figure out which team could go, as opposed to trying to quickly go off of this. But if you stayed to the end, I appreciate it. Thank you. Subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll see you next one.